sure I got everything rolling. Perfect. Mic check, mic check, mic check. If you're just now tuning in, I'll do my wave hands thing so you guys know when I'm all ready to go again. Perfect. Throw up the announcement. All right, I'm gonna go get this other light on real quick. Perfect. It's cold down here. Alrighty. Well, I know we're really early, and I'm sure quite a handful of you will watch this back since I know the last one got a little bit of traction. So if you're watching this back, Happy New Year and Happy Merry Christmas, obviously. I know we're a little late to the ball game here, but uploads should continue steady moving forward after my nice little break. I am very fortunate to have gotten to take, so I appreciate all of your understanding. So we will roll back out the usual uploading schedule from here on out and just keep on going from there. This over here. Wipe off the camera even maybe. Okay. I'll give it a couple minutes and then we can go ahead and flare this one up. I kind of want to shut that light off. I don't know if I like it. I think I like the light on. It feels too ominous in here to have the light on. It's like we're in a dungeon with the lights off. I don't think I'm a big fan. Give it a couple more minutes here. Give everyone enough time to get in since I popped off a little bit early today. So we'll give it a couple minutes. Let's see. I know I'm going to wait a little bit before I fire this stuff off, but if you guys have any questions while we're just sitting around, just go ahead and feel free to fire away. More than willing to answer whatever you guys got. I know it's been a little while since I've gotten to speak to you guys. I know we're pretty deep into the league season, getting into the mid-season. Mid-season seems to be the time when most bowlers tend to either pick up or slow down. There's usually no in-between. So hopefully all of you are in the bowling good phase of the year. I know I certainly am as of these past handful of weeks, thankfully. Let me see. Make sure I sent out everything correctly. Okay, we did. Perfect. So, I know that in the last live stream we did, we had kind of gone over a handful of topics that I'm discussing again here in this one. But obviously, given that we did that live stream a handful of weeks ago, I wanted to be sure that there was no kind of that layover time where all of us kind of had, where I was kind of away for a little bit, and I want to make sure, hey Debbie, Happy New Year and Merry belated Christmas. I hope Santa gave you a bunch of awesome things, and hopefully the new year is bringing in a bunch of strikes for you already. So I know, given that I've been away for a little bit, I wanted to make sure that all of this new content with the Arsenal Advantage and Adjusting playlist is actually able to stick around. Also, if you're watching this back, here's my wave your arms. This is your time to tune back into the video. So, as I was just saying, I know it's been a little while since I had last uploaded, so I wanted to be sure that we had enough time to ensure that we are properly digesting everything that I'm saying when it comes to how to actually see the lane surface, and relating that to all the way back in the pathway of learning, where we kind of started to discuss what the optical illusion really is. And I'm sure, and I'm not even sure, I know, because I've been receiving some messages from a handful of you, that the way that you've been seeing bowling, and maybe some of you continue to see bowling for quite a long time, it's very interesting, to say the least, especially with the way it's coached. Because the first and obvious thing is, I'm sure all of you, whether you've been around for a long while or whether you're newer here and just starting to pick up the channel and everything, that when you watch that video that we're discussing here, which is the Arsenal Advances in Adjusting video, episode 6, where just above my head, I had kind of put in some edits of what the actual dimensions of that lane look like. And for many bowlers, and as most bowlers, to be honest, that's a very big shock, because if any of you have been to any bowling ball manufacturer or even just looking up things online, most of the photos that you'll find kind of have that bird's eye view, kind of like I showed you there, but it's never really drawn to the correct scale. And because it's not drawn to the correct scale, it changes people's vision on how that they're perceiving that their bowling ball is actually navigating throughout that time it's traveling on the lane surface to get you those awesome strikes that you're looking for. And it's no surprise that it's misconceiving, because when you see the reality versus what we're shown, there's a very big disconnect there. The photos make the lane seem like it's very wide, and the length is actually quite proportional to its width. But looking at the actual dimensions of the lane, everybody is realizing very, very quickly that those are not the actual dimensions. The actual dimensions of the lane, in terms of the width in terms of the length in relation to the width, the length is almost darn near 100 times in scale of the width. And that is certainly well against what most of us are shown throughout the majority of our bowling careers when we are watching and looking at the photos drawn on the bowling ball companies and other things of that nature. So that makes it very, very interesting for that fact. So because of that, especially when bowlers are learning to apply rotation to the bowling ball, they're learning to hook it. The way that all bowlers see it, and maybe some even still do now, even after watching it and they're trying to understand it, is when people think of a ball hooking, they think of the lefted or rightedness that bowling ball ends up traveling in relation to where it came out of their hands. So when you think of a bowling ball hooking, you think of how far left did that shot go, or how far right did that shot curve or hook or turn or go around the corner. And you hear those terms kind of thrown around a lot. And albeit it looks like that, I'm quite certain to most of you that if you were shown in all of the marketing, in all of the photos ever, if you were shown at the very, very beginning a photo that is drawn to the actual scale of the lane, I'm sure just about all of us would agree that you probably wouldn't think of the ball moving left to right as much. You'd think of how forward and backward that ball's moving. Sure, it's seeing a left and right movement, but it's moving a whole lot more forward than it is left and right. So relating that back to what I'm discussing here is adjusting and such, because adjusting, especially when you're first learning, is all left and right movements. All of us do it, right? If your ball, all of us have learned, and I've even preached it, move in the direction of your miss. Because if your bowling ball is not hooking enough, you can move to the right if you're a righty, or the left if you're a lefty, and get that ball to hook more. And if it's hooking too much, you can move to the left if you're a righty, or to the right if you're a lefty, and get that ball to hook less. But my question that we're starting to shed some light on here now is, why is that what happens? What is really causing my ball to hook less? And the obvious answer for most bowlers, if you've been watching me for even a little while, is, oh, Coach Logan, it's the oil, right? The oil is impacting the ball. It's if the ball is traveling over oil, that means it's seeing less friction because it's getting resistance from that oil. And because of that, the bowling ball isn't able to respond. That is correct. But when the bowling ball does not respond, what does that mean for the forwardness of where that bowling ball is responding? If your bowling ball is traveling over oil, that means your bowling ball is responding later. And since it's responding at a later point down lane, that means the bowling ball has less time to see that left or right change in direction because it's already about to go off the edge of the lane. Versus one that's hooking more, that means that bowling ball is seeing friction at a sooner point in time, thus meaning it has more time being spent on the lane after it has seen friction, meaning it is then hooking sooner or more. So that is essentially challenging what most of us have learned, that hooking more don't think of it as it went more left. Think of hooking more as it read the lane sooner. And don't think of hooking less as it didn't move to the left as much. Think of hooking less as it read the lane later. Debbie says, yes, I went Brooklyn almost 4 times today. Very fun line to move left, right. Yeah, see, yeah, it's, and that kind of goes back to understanding how your ball is traveling through the pins and such, right? And, you know, if it's very interesting, Debbie, because I talked about this loosely, and we'll get into it later, and I'll likely have this be in the next episode to kind of shed some more light on it too, is when to make forward and back speed or left and right adjustments. Like what times are best for that? And I think that I'll kind of allude to some of that here, but moving left and right and such, there is certainly a time for it. So I don't want, you trying to change your perception of the lane surface to make you think that left and right adjustments aren't viable, because they certainly are. But understanding when is best to utilize each one is what will help you the most. And we'll get into that here. So glad to hear, Debbie. And hey, you know what? An X on the board is an X on the board. If no one saw those 4 shots and only looked at the scoreboard, I see 4 X's. And if they're in a row, that's a ham bone. I mean, hey, that's all you can ask for. If you have control, I've actually seen a couple guys that intentionally throw Brooklyns because there might be a bad rack. I mean, it's all up to whatever, and you have no choice but to take it in bowling. You can't, say, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I didn't mean to do that, and take it away. Not allowed to do that. So, hey, strikes are strikes, especially when we're trying to learn new things, right? So, let me get back on track. So, again, I understand, and I people will always have pushback on this, and I can't really discredit them or make them feel that they're incorrect when they say this, that it's important to see the lane front to back, Coach Logan, sure. But the 3 phases of ball motion is one of the most debated about topics in my personal mind. And I've actually become more and more conflicted of this as of recent, because I'm always a huge advocate, or have usually been a massive advocate, sort of against that methodology. Not saying that it's an incorrect methodology, but the concept of, with that bowling ball's technology, it's always trying to initiate into that hook and roll phase where it's seeing that change in direction that you have come to learn over the years, or even just a handful of days or months or however long you've been bowling. But regardless of how much friction or oil or whatever that bowling ball is seeing, it's always trying to get into that hook and roll phase. So the 3 phases of ball motion are saying, for the very beginning of time your ball is spending on the lane, it's seeing so much resistance from so much oil, so it's essentially skidding. Then as your bowling ball is able to see a little bit more friction as it travels down the mid lane, it's then able to initiate into the hook phase, ultimately rolling in the direction of the pins toward the end. And I talked about that in the episode, right? Because that's the easiest way to explain it. And for the longest time, I've always been a huge advocate against looking at it that way, because albeit it does have that sort of, I guess, look to our eye. If you draw a line over where your ball is traveling, it makes that sort of shape. You can see in the beginning it travels linear because it's skidding. It then begins to see the change in direction where it hooks, and it eventually bottoms out just before the pins and is almost going linear back this direction. But regardless of that, I don't want us to not think that the bowling ball is not always trying to get into that, because it's trying to get into that even when it's skidding, but it simply can't because of how much resistance that it is seeing from that oil. If your bowling ball is traveling over nothing but ice, essentially, of course your bowling ball can't hook and turn and do all that stuff that you think you're seeing, because it's on ice. It's like trying to drive a car and you're drifting. It's essentially doing that same thing. If you drift your car, it's going to completely slide in the beginning and eventually pick up some traction and be able to turn. That's what causes that drift. And that's essentially what your bowling ball is doing. It's essentially taking a drift. It's trying its best to make that donut or whatever in the ice, which hopefully none of you are sliding too bad, no car accidents. But, I'm sure all of you know that feeling all too well. Oh, the car is starting to slide. I can't control it. But then once you take control of it, you then have control of the wheel and you can change the direction it's going. That's exactly what your bowling ball is doing. But when your car is skidding and has completely lost control, that doesn't mean during that period it's not trying to stabilize itself. It's not trying to go in the direction that it wants to go. It's always trying, but because of the resistance, it simply just can't until a later point when it is able to build up more friction and traction on the road. Same thing with bowling. I always feel that it's weird to relate a car and ice and stuff, but given that bowling is invisible, guys, we got to relate it to something. So that's the best one thing to do it. Speed and slide in the hook phase when it's going to slide friction. Stay on friction, roll phase all over again. Yep, exactly. Also, Mike, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. I know a little belated, but I hope the new year is starting off strong for you with all your bowling and all your extravaganzas. So let me pull this back up. I want to make sure I don't miss anything because I know there's a lot of stuff I've been covering recently, so I don't want to leave something out or, God forbid, say something I said differently or do anything like that. So let me just make sure I have all my stuff in a row. So essentially what I'm saying is, guys, is when I say see the lane from front to back, that directly relates to seeing, how did I word this? Is to focus on the depth of which your bowling ball is trying to hook, right? So the depth of which your bowling ball is trying to hook, like I said earlier, is directly relating how much it is hooking. So the more control we have over that depth, that is what is going to allow us to have the most control and get us into the pocket and striking a whole heck of a lot more. Because whether you've seen it or not, or can think back to in the last Arsenal Advantage and Adjustments episode where I showed some videos and examples of me bowling where it's initiating too soon or too late, that bowling ball tends to not hit the right way. If the bowling ball initiates into that roll phase and gets totally end over end way too early, that bowling ball has burned up a bunch of energy very, very, very early on. And the bowling ball is always trying to burn up energy. But if we can slow the speed of which it's burning up energy and get it to properly lose the correct amount of energy at the right period on the lane, that is what is going to get your bowling ball to drive through the pins the correct way. So if your bowling ball is going through that process of burning up its energy and is burning up way too much of its energy way too quickly, aka the bowling ball is initiating into that hook and roll phase too soon, the bowling ball, to be honest, it does exactly what I said. It runs out of steam entirely. And when your bowling ball has no steam, the deflection characteristics are greatly increased. The bowling ball will tap a pin and it looks like the pin hit the bowling ball because it deflects so much and it doesn't hit the pins well. That's why you'll find a lot of those really ugly leaves that are light, such as a 5-7, a 5-10, or even some of the buckets and stuff like that. That's a very common leave that happens when your bowling ball is very, very aggressively burning up way too much energy way too quickly. The opposite can happen if your bowling ball is burning up energy way too slowly and is initiating into that hook and roll phase late. When the bowling ball never fully has enough time to properly get into a roll end over end phase, just a handful of feet before making contact with the pins, it has a very similar problem as well, where the bowling ball just doesn't have that give. It doesn't have the deflection characteristics that you're looking for. So I always say that you want that bowling ball to be responding near or around the end of the oil, because kind of similarly to our car analogy with the ice and with it drifting or trying to make a turn on an icy road. If the car is skidding and it is skidding through the ice and trying to turn, and only when there's no more ice that car can turn, that's more than likely going to be a way too late of a point, which is where that oil cutoff is. If your car can start to see a little bit of friction and gain a little bit of traction a little bit sooner, that is going to get that bowling ball initiating into, or that car, which bowling ball, you get it, push and pull, bear with me, getting it into that hook and roll phase at a much more proper point to get you the deflection that you're looking for. And it's way easier said than done. And left and right moves do accomplish this, right? If you're a right-handed bowler and you make a move to the left, that's going to get that bowling ball to read later, thus meaning that it will initiate into the hook and roll phase later. So if the bowling ball is burning up and running into where it's using its energy too quickly, make a move to the left and get your bowling ball to see more friction at a later point as opposed to a sooner point to get that deflection you're looking for. And opposite problem is true. But here comes a big question that I often pose to a lot of bowlers when they start to understand this concept, and that is, okay, so we're talking about left and right moves and how they can have the biggest impact, but let's say that you feel like your bowling ball is initiating into all the phases at the correct point in time on the lane, but it's just simply not close enough to the head pin, or maybe it is too close to the head pin. It's initiating into the phases correctly, but it's not hitting the pocket where it needs to hit to strike based off of what it is I'm throwing. Well, let's say you're really close. Let's say you're running into a very common issue where you're stuffing the pocket, you're hitting it real hard, and you're leaving a weak 7, a flat 10, a ring 10, a flat 7, a ring 10. Maybe you'll hit something even goofier a little bit. Maybe you'll miss a little bit and you'll get punished even more with like a bucket, a 5-7, stuff like that. If your bowling ball is properly dispensing its energy the correct amount as it's traveling down the lane, but you can't quite get it into the spot in the pocket you're looking for, making a left and right move is usually not your best option. So the best way I can describe this is to base it back to me challenging why you should see it from front to back. And that is the importance of the length in relation to the width. So if your bowling ball is reading the correct way and you make a left or right move, that's going to change the depth of which that bowling ball is reading very drastically, because 1 inch or one board, which is 1 inch, 1 inch of movement to the left or right is almost the equivalent of making a drastic change forward and backwards, because there's less width that we have to work with. The average that your bowling ball from left and right that it's moving, I feel like I show this rule every time, is about this distance, which, I mean, if I hold a bowling ball up to this, it's about the width of a bowling ball. And most of you aren't getting yours to wheel this far unless you are a rev dominant player. So, you know, if you're looking at this, this is not a lot of left and right movement. So if I make a left or right adjustment, that's going to make a drastic change. And if I'm right there and it's dispensing its energy at the correct points and I make a left or right move, I have to make a 15th of a board change, and nobody can do that correctly. So making a change that will keep that depth, but get it to get a little bit closer, or a little bit looser on the head pin is what you need. So adjusting forward and backwards can be a little bit tricky. So I'll kind of explain this as to why this is, and you have to kind of conduct an analysis on yourself as a bowler to properly understand this concept. So my first question to all of you is, if you were to take a shot right now and look down at your feet after you've thrown the bowling ball, how close are you coming to that foul line? Now, I know that's a weird question for me to be asking you given what we're talking about, but I'll explain it a little bit more here. So if you are a bowler that comes right up on the foul line, where my foot is landing is right up on the foul line. If my setup is here and I take a half step forward, if I take the same distance of step, I know I'm going to foul. Take that in mind. Now let's say you're a different bowler and you might have maybe a foot or a little bit, a handful of room between the tip of your foot and the foul line. You have some room to work with. Take note of that as well. So depending on which of these two categories you fall into, will kind of help shed some more light as to what these forward and backward adjustments are going to do. So we'll talk about the first bowler, which is the bowler that's coming right up on the foul line or pretty darn close to it. So let's say I'm that bowler and my setup is right here and I have my bowling ball, right? And I throw the ball and I'm coming right up on the foul line. So for that bowler, if my bowling ball is going a little bit too tight on the head pin, it's a little too close. Logically, if I was to take a half step forward, let me restart. Let's say you were the bowler that has some distance between you and the foul line. So you set up here, you throw the bowling ball, and you have like a foot or so of room between the tip of your foot and the foul line, right? You are that bowler. If you are that bowler and you want your bowling ball to get just a little bit lighter on that head pin, not get as close to the center, if you take a half step forward, a little step forward and change nothing, that means you are going to be launching the ball out of your hand a half step forward in relation to where you were previously. And because you're releasing that bowling ball a little bit further than where you were previously, that is going to slightly extend the distance or the depth of lane of which that bowling ball is reading by however much you move forward. Now that's provided you didn't change your speed or anything else. So if I'm here and I take a step this wide forward, my bowling ball is going to respond this step later, provided nothing else changes. Versus the opposite. Let's say your bowling ball is coming in just a little bit light. If it's coming in a little bit light, if I take a half step back, my bowling ball will respond a half step sooner, since I'm releasing the bowling ball a little bit back or closer, so sooner, right? So that is what allows you those super duper minute changes. And speed can also be something you play with. So let's say you are the other bowler and you come right on the foul line. When I release the ball, the tip of my toe is right on the foul line. If I was to do what you said, Coach Logan, and take that half step up, I'm going to foul. Those bowlers tend to fall into this sort of issue. So if you are that bowler and you're trying to listen to what I'm saying and you're like, all right, I'm going to take that half step forward or whatever. Because, and this is just a mental thing, whether you realize it or not, so you might not even realize you're doing this. if you are that bowler and you take that half step up, there's this mental block in your mind that's saying, I have to shorten my steps because if I don't, I'm going to foul. And when we shorten our steps, you know what happens? We walk slower and we release the ball slower. Now, the longer time your bowling ball is spending on the lane, that's giving it more time for it to respond, thus making the depth of which that bowling ball is responding earlier, versus if I throw it faster, that gives the ball less time to respond, extending the depth of which that bowling ball is reading. So, if you're thinking, if I take a half step forward, my ball should respond a little bit less since I'm releasing it a half step forward, but you come to the foul line, you're actually doing the opposite because now your speed is going to slow down, meaning it's actually going to hook more or sooner. So for you guys, it's almost the opposite. So, and other bowlers, if you come short to the foul line, can do this as well. You have that versatility. So if you come right up on the foul line or whatever, if you take a little bit of a step forward, that's going to make you throw the ball slower and make the ball hook sooner or more. Versus if I take a half step back, that means my body will now want to move faster, take longer steps to get up to the foul line, meaning I'll throw the ball faster and make the ball hook later and less. So it's kind of a push and pull. And you kind of have some versatility if you have a handful of inches between the tip of your foot and the foul line to work with, because you can do either or. Because I don't want you guys to think that this works for all bowlers. If you're a bowler that comes up a little short of the foul line, some of you might do it where you'll say, okay, I know I fall a little short of the foul line. I'll take a half step up and not change my speed. If you throw it and you notice right away, oh, I feel like I threw that slower, then you know right away you got to look at it from the perspective of that other bowler. So a lot of this is kind of about tailoring what kind of best fits for your game, because I know that this can kind of have a very big problem with the physical game when you're changing the forward or backness of which you're standing. Because when you stand farther back, that means your steps are longer, your tempo will be different, your swing could get adjusted. Because you're moving far forward, you could tilt more forward and change your spine tilt. This could change your timing and change a lot. So doing stuff like this is certainly, if you're doing it for the first time, going to have some impacts. But start small, because moving forward and backward, you can make the much more minute adjustments. Because if I move an inch left, right, that's almost the equivalent of me moving this much forward. Because it's not as finite. We can't make as finite of changes, which is why I'm saying, this is where I'm standing, and with where I'm standing, I'm right in the pocket, but it's leaving a 7-pin or a 10-pin. It's right there. It's just a little bit light. Don't make a right move, because you can't make a minute change that way. If you're right there and your bowling ball's reading the correct way, take a half step back or to release the ball a little bit earlier. Or if you're the other bowler, take a half step forward to allow you to slow your speed down. Some of you might not even have to move forward and back to change your speed. Some of you might just say, okay, I'm just going to very slightly soften up my speed and throw it, a quarter of a mile an hour slower or a half a mile an hour slower. It's all about catering your best strengths to how you can properly navigate that invisible playing field. Yes, that will correct me. Yeah, see what I mean? So the best way I can say to work on this, guys, is to just go out and try it. Now, I can sit here and tell you guys all day, and you guys can keep sending me videos, and I encourage all of you to do so. Send me a video of you trying this stuff out, because the best way that I think that you can best figure this out is next time you go bowling, get lined up, or at least get somewhere close. So let's say I'm standing here, and I'm pretty well lined up. Maybe I'm a little light, but I'm close to the pocket with where I'm standing. From there, do some drastic stuff and see what a difference it makes. So when I say do something drastic, I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to take a little step back and see what it does. No, I'm saying like take like a foot step back and see what this changes, and see how your form changes, how your timing changes, how that ball reaction changes, to figure out what works for you. Because if you go out there trying to apply things I'm saying when you're not in a practice environment, you're almost always going to feel less timid. Confidence is a massive thing in bowling, especially with making spares and stuff, because if your confidence is low, you feel like you can't be as drastic, or you don't feel like the decisions you're making are as effective. And because of that, you tend to tense up. You might be a little more condensed than you usually are. You might throw the ball a little bit slower. You might make some silly mistakes you don't make all the time. So the biggest thing I can say is to go practice, do something very, very drastically, and just see what best works for you. But I'm telling you guys, if you want to have the most control that you possibly can have over the most minute of adjustments, simply relying on left and right moves is not the answer. Now again, I'm not telling you guys, and I need to make this very, very clear, I don't want you guys to think that left and right moves aren't the answer, because they certainly are. They certainly will be throughout your time. Even just bowling a game, you'll likely have to move, especially throughout even just a league night. The shot is always changing. The oil is always being dried up, sloshed around, whatever. And there can never be more oil on that lane than what there was when we started, provided no one cheated or did anything silly, of course, right? You can't make more oil appear out of thin air. So logically, the bowling ball is only going to respond sooner and sooner and sooner. So learning ways to combat that is extremely important. But my only thing I would always tell you guys to challenge is, if you're close, if you're right there, try not to immediately think, I'm right there, but I better make a left and right move, because now all of you are armed with the knowledge of knowing that the left and right stuff doesn't give you as much versatility. I mean, taking a little like 1-inch step back is almost the equivalent of left and right of you making a 50th of a board move left, or like a 15th of a board move left, and nobody can measure the exact spot their foot is standing in their setup properly down to a 15th of an inch. That's just not possible, right? So this gives you that versatility that you are looking for. So yeah, I kind of said in the previous one where there's this concept of finding it and keeping it, which I guess is what I've been alluding to this whole time, right? The left and right moves help you find it. They help you find that ball reaction you're looking for. They help you find that deflection characteristics you're looking for. They help you find the depth of which your bowling ball should be responding based on what you're bowling on. But once you've found it, it's just about keeping it. And the minute adjustments with your speed and forward and back is what are allowing you to keep it. Don't spend all game trying to find it by moving left a ton, moving right a ton. Let me take a 15th of a board step left and a 2 2/3 board right, and then, that one went high, so I'm going to go 1 2/3. Like, that's just crazy, guys. Move forward and back. Mess with your speed. Some people actually do best with speed. And if you're having problems with being able to alter your speed or being able to properly execute those minute adjustments, reach out. Send videos. I can show you how you can cater your physical game to allow you to capitalize on those minute adjustments. Because every professional, every pro-am, everyone out there is able to do those. That's able to execute at a well above average and high level. Let me see what else is big. Trying to think. And I mean, like, there's some other stuff you guys can do as well. I think something that's kind of very often overlooked is when the bowling ball is coming out of your hand can make a massive difference. Because let's say you have some difficulties with getting the bowling ball to come out of your hand at the same time. So let's say on one shot, maybe, we'll say I'm traditional way here. Let's say on one shot, the ball's coming out of your hand right here. So your arm is a little bit forward, not completely down. It's a little bit forward. Because of that, you're projecting your ball a little bit in the air. Maybe it might have the first 2 or 3 feet or so where it's in the air and it has that thud where it hits the lane. Now, let's say on another shot, you release it just a tad bit sooner. You release it maybe here as opposed to here. Well, now your bowling ball doesn't have that first couple of feet of loft time where it's going. It's now immediately making contact with the lane surface. And logically, if on the shot where I released it here is making contact with the lane at this point, pretend to look at the lane this way, it's making contact with the lane here, but the shot where I released it sooner is making contact with the lane here sooner, that's going to have some difference for when your bowling ball is reading on the lane. Another thing to think about with that is, if I'm releasing the bowling ball later, all of my energy is being projected in the direction of my arm when that bowling ball is released. So if my arm is faced here, more forward at you guys, at the pins, the bowling ball is going to have more energy going forward. But if I release the ball sooner, like here, this is pretty drastic, but you guys all know someone that releases sooner and the ball goes thud when it hits the ground. If this is you and you're releasing the ball sooner, your energy may be projected forward because of your arm swing, but it's projected more down. So this bowler is not only going to give that ball a little bit of hang time, but more of the speed is going this way. This bowler is getting their ball to hit the lane not only sooner, but their energy is more at the ground. And when your energy is not as allocated forward, that means your speed's slower. Guys, it's the little stuff like this that is going to refine you the most. And it is the little stuff like that that is the most overlooked. And I say it all the time, especially in the Arsenal Advantage and Adjustments playlist, with adjustments only work if you can cater to a consistent release. If your release is not consistent, the car, it's like the car trying to make that donut or that skid or driving on the icy road. It's like it's a different car every time. Not every car handles the same. Not every car sees traction the same way. And if your hand comes out of the ball sooner and around the ball, and then the next shot comes off later and more behind the ball, the next shot doesn't really twist at all and comes out way late, your consistency is just it's going to be very, very difficult to get into a groove. Very, very difficult to get your ball to respond the same way. It's going to be very, very difficult to get that Ford brand car to drive the same way if one time you're in a Ford car, one time you're in a Chevy, one time you're in a Hyundai, one time you're in a Aston Martin, one time you're in a Ferrari, right? I mean, it's the same kind of methodology. Not every car handles the same, but by releasing the ball the same way, you'll always be in the same car. It's the best way I can describe it. It's the best way I can describe it. So I really think that, again, all of this really caters into this optical illusion, because I find myself very frustrated very often, and it's nobody's fault but I guess the past's, that what most of us are shown when we first get into bowling is those real blown up wide photos that aren't to scale. And I'm sure all of you, whether you can remember the first time you saw the lane to scale on here or not, you're probably like, wow, like I really wish I was shown that sooner. I've heard that about a bunch. I said that when I was shown it the first time. It frustrates me that that's not the first thing we're shown, because I feel as if the very first time you went bowling or the very first time you were getting into it, if you were shown the lane to scale, not the marketing stuff, not the blown up stuff, I think that this optical illusion wouldn't really be an optical illusion, because it would be what we're used to seeing. But since this stuff isn't what we're used to seeing, it's nobody's at fault for assuming that the amount of hook the bowling ball gets should be related to how left or right it's moving, because that's what we're shown in most of the graphics that have the width blown up. But when you really see how much your bowling ball is moving on an actual scale lane, it's like, wow, like it's really not moving that much. It's really not moving hardly at all, because there's so much oil out there. It's just mostly spending most of its time seeing all that resistance from the oil. And I think that would help kind of clarify this for a lot of bowlers. But the very least I can do is at least make you aware of it while you're watching this and while you're watching this now. Because, again, the sooner you can start to see it from front to back, seeing the depth of that bowling ball's response, seeing how that response is directly relating to how your bowling ball is hitting the pins, and then knowing how to make adjustments that play to the depth and not the width, is what makes a good bowler a great one. A great one. And I don't know how many of you had a chance to see it with one of the last Quick Tip Tuesdays, where I had uploaded it in a format on a Shorts tab. I wanted to kind of show you guys this, because this is something that I think can kind of help to kind of shed some light on some stuff, just because I think it's also interesting. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys my little laptop screen here, hopefully. So this is a blown up photo of the lane. So obviously this is your approach. These are your little indicator dots where you guys are all standing. And this is the actual dimensions of the lane. So cutting this out, I mean, these are the gutters too, guys. These don't even count. I mean, this is the width of the lane. I mean, when you're looking at it, it's like, wow, like these arrows look way farther apart when I'm out there, but they're really not. I mean, this is small. This is very, very thin. It's like looking at a pencil. It's the same. I mean, it's the same thing. So what I had kind of drawn up here is it's in the shorts, and it kind of shows, provided that you're releasing the bowling ball dead straight, which I know most of us are not rolling it dead straight. If you were to say, let's follow this red line. If I wanted to roll over in this one, the center arrow, since we can see they're all going over the center arrow. if I wanted to roll my ball at the center arrow, I'd follow this red line back, and where my ball should be laid down is at about 25. Now, obviously, take this with a bit of a grain of salt, because if you apply some rotation, if it's following this line and it's skidding through this portion where it's seeing all the resistance, and then down lane is able to then begin to hook and go straight left of this line, you're likely, if you tried to follow this and applied rotation, you're likely going to miss up in this range because it hooked, because the bowling ball read the lane. So it's no longer projected in this path. So many people said, all right, I appreciate this, Coach Logan. And also something to take into account is, oh, this is the third arrow one. Something else to take into account is if this red line is saying this is where the ball should be laid down, remember, where you're standing versus where the ball is coming out of your hand are in two different spots. So for example, if I'm standing, if my foot is right here and I throw, but my arm is here, well, my foot is not directly in alignment with my arm. So because of that, my eyes are also in a different line. My eyes will tend to align with my feet. So if I'm seeing a line from the perspective of my eyes and I roll my ball at that, guess what? It's not on line, and I'm not going to hit the same direction. So when you're looking at these arrows, that's in relation to where your hand should be getting rid of the ball, not your feet or your eyes. So it's almost like, since I make a lot of analogies with shooting, it's almost like you're not shooting like this, you're shooting at the hip. Where the muzzle of your barrel isn't at your eye level, but it's at your hip level. So you have to account for that. But something that I think that you guys can kind of start to kind of leverage these photos for is to think, all right, let's say my bowling ball is responding at about this depth on the lane with where I'm bowling, right in between these two rangefinders where it's hooking, and it's giving me the reaction I'm looking for. But let's say you don't quite know where you want to throw it to get it to hook back into the pocket. Well, these can kind of give you a very rough guide for where to launch the ball, what direction to project it. So if I'm standing wherever here, and I want to look at the third arrow, and I want to project my ball at the 10 pin, then I should be standing around here. If my release point where the ball is right here, just right of the middle of the lane, if I release that and get it over this third arrow, my ball will be projected at the 10 pin, but since it's responding about here, it'll respond and make it back into the pocket at the distance I'm looking for. And I think that that's kind of a useful trick. And again, it's a loose guide, because what you're bowling on is never the same and never will be the exact same. Maybe similar, but it's never the exact same, right? So when you can kind of learn to see where you're projecting the ball and kind of leverage that, I think that that's very helpful for getting you to understand these concepts of launch angles. And this will be something that I start to talk about in the next episode, because I think launch angles is something that the term you may have heard, but the understanding of it goes well beyond just that. And to put things simple, since we'll be diving into it later, is launch angles is quite applicable to what the name of it is. And that's the angle of which you're launching the ball out of your hand, and then learning to cater that physically. So I think that some of the professionals best explain this. So this is very, very applicable to knowing what your target is and beyond. Since I know most of us target the arrows, many of you guys probably come into the issue of when you're trying to adjust and trying to change that friction line and that depth of response, you know, you're hitting your target, but it's not quite responding in the depth you're looking for, or it's not being projected in the angle that you're looking for it to be projected to get it to respond in the right depth on the lane. But the best way I can describe this is, let's say that my hand is my target, okay? Let's say my hand is my target. Two different launch angles would be if I'm releasing the ball here and hitting my target like this angle, versus if I'm way over here and hitting my target this angle. So these are two different angles. This is this angle, and this other angle is pretty much directly at you guys. So sure, you may be hitting your target, but it's only good if you know what's going on beyond that target, because the depth of response of your bowling ball is what we care about, right? So you have to understand what's going on beyond it. And if you can cater yourself physically to allow yourself to achieve that proper launch angle that you're looking at, that is what helps you. And that exact graphic is going to shed light on that. For example, if you're a revolution dominant bowler and you're playing the lane very, very deep, right? And your target's the 5th arrow. If you want your launch angle from the 5th arrow to be in the direction of the 10 pin, provided you hit it where it's projected, then you should be releasing the ball here. There it is. And again, if you want to see these photos, look in my shorts. It'll be one of the last Quick Tip Tuesdays. So again, like, you have to know where you're projecting the ball. So learning how to project the ball properly and properly cater your launch angles to your physical game is what makes a difference, because it's also only good with adjusting if we can hit our target, and the physical game has the biggest impact on that. So if we're going back to that analogy and my target's here and this is my launch angle, my arm should be pretty straight and get me to roll. You can kind of think of that launch angle that you're drawing back to yourself as a bowler. If my arm is always traveling in the direction of my launch angle, how could I ever possibly miss my target? If I miss my target left, it's probably because my arm got outside of it in my backswing and crossed over to the left. And if you miss your launch angle to the right, it's probably because my arm got behind my back and had no time to get back inside of me, and I projected my arm to the right. That's what causes your misses. So if you know, if my launch angle is straight, my arm has to go straight, then that will help you hit your target. And if you are a bowler that's playing that same exact arrow, but you're standing way over here, you know you can't be square because you're gonna miss your target to the left. You have to let your arm go a little bit behind you so it can project out in the direction of that target. And that's the stuff that makes a big, big difference, guys. A massive, massive difference. Eric. Hi, Eric. I don't think I've gotten to meet you yet. Welcome to the channel. So he said, question, don't mean to sound mean. I promise you will never ever hurt my feelings. Ask anything you want to ask. He said, you know 10-pin bowling isn't the only form of bowling. This is coming from professional candlepin. That's actually really cool. I have yet to actually meet a candlepin bowler. So the thing that I think is very cool with the candlepin and even the duck pin, I don't know, I've gotten a chance to do that a couple of times, Eric, and I love it, is it's pretty neat how a lot of concepts, especially with the physical game, can very, very directly relate to those other ones. And I think this launch angle one's a great one for you, because if you're looking at an arrow for your candlepin bowling and you're trying to get it to hit, because I know speed is the biggest thing for candlepin, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you get 3 shots, so you get your first one's a strike, second one gives you a spare, and your third one's a count, and you get the deadwood. So, Eric, I promise, don't ever worry about thinking you're going to be mean. I absolutely know that there are those other forms of bowling, and I absolutely wish I was better at them. There's a reason I stick to your traditional 10-pin bowling, because I don't have the arm strength with these little spaghetti arms to get my ball to go probably nearly as fast as yours does. The concepts of that launch angle and learning to keep your arm on line, especially when you're throwing the ball so fast, is extremely critical, because if your arm is always straying behind your back or outside of where you're trying to launch your arm, that's going to cause you to miss that head pin. And I'm sure there's nothing worse in a candlepin than missing a target, because the pins are they're like this. This is a candlepin. So, if your ball is only this big, the launch angles are way more important for you, because, your ball doesn't have time to really hook and respond and give you much forgiveness. And because it can't do that, you have to be direct with where you're trying to project that ball. So absolutely, I think that'll be a great episode for you, even with candlepin, because, learning how to relate the physical game to how to adjust is absolutely critical. This is great visual. The arrows are 45 feet and 50 feet from the arrows to the foul line, making a 3-to-1 ratio. Easy. Yes, sir. So again, it's under the, let me make sure I tell you guys where it's at. So if you go on my YouTube and you click shorts, it says understanding where you're projecting in bowling, which is what we just talked about. So if you ever want to see it, you can pause the video. It shows it up and down. I tried to, in the community, to post like the image file for you to just tap on so you could zoom in wherever you wanted. But for whatever odd reason, I think it's because the size of the image is so much wider than it is like the height of it, because of how the lane is made up. It told me that like the size of the image wasn't applicable to something that I could upload. So I was thinking that I could just upload it, so yes, you do it, but it wouldn't let me. So what I think I'll do is I'll try to go back, and maybe I could see if I could like make the image wider, but have the stuff outside of where it shows that lane just be black. So that way it actually lets me upload it. But I'm worried it's going to distort the quality of the images and stuff. So tell you what, after this, let me write that down so I don't forget to kind of mess around here. So I want to make them as accessible for you guys as you guys can, so you guys can consult them in a quick moment's notice if you ever need to, if you're out in the field trying to bowl. Because there's nothing worse than having to try to click through my little Quick Tip Tuesday video to find the exact arrow you're looking at and see where to project it and everything else. So yeah, kind of like what Mike is saying with, you know, it's a big numbers thing. I'm sure you're coming to realize, if you are analytical like Mike, since I know Mike is very analytical, he's able to kind of trace those lines back. You know, notice that the lines being traced back all have a very similar distance. They're all usually like 2 or 3 boards apart. I want to say it's, yeah, so he's saying divide that by 3. Yeah, see, so he's able to basically draw out this line in his head using the numbers. So if you are more analytical like that and that would benefit for you, then perfect. But if you need something quick and easy, just look at it. Logan, show me a photo. There it is. So I wrote that down, so I will be sure to do images. Let me write that down further. Images on community. Perfect. Let me think what else, guys. I got quite a lot. That's why I'm glad the new PBA video game gave us some exposure. Also, fun facts in our game. It's older than 10 pin. No perfect 3 has ever been done. The pin weight more than one. That's why I thought, yeah, I know there's been no 300. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head how close it's been, but what has ever been like really close? I mean, I wonder, it's just so fascinating to me because the dimensions of a ball to the dimensions of the pin, they look way different than your traditional 10 pin. Like the 10, even like just the shape of the pins are different, and I think that makes it so interesting. And yeah, I got that new PBA game, and I've been addicted. I like the candle pin and the duck pin. It's kind of cool that they added that stuff and gave you guys some good exposure, because I totally agree that they don't give it enough. Even just with bowling in general, I really wish that they had the I really wish that they had like some Olympic presence or something with bowling and all that, so that we could get the sport more wide known, because I think I just love bowling. I mean, I'm sure all you guys probably know that. You guys obviously do too. You're here listening to me talk. Photos are a great visual aid. The math gets to a line. I know coaches use lasers to help visualize a line and plan. Yeah, so they have these spectos, which I'm sure some of you have had a chance to see, where it's essentially like a laser, and it draws a line out to literally draw a line like I just showed you. It shows the launch angle, it shows the projection, it shows where at what arrow or what spot at the arrows or whatever it is you choose to target, where the path that ball should be traveling, that it will eventually stray away from once it gets into those hook and roll phases. And if you ever have a chance, it's Specto, S-P-E-C-T-O. It's a machine. You can buy one for probably about $18 million, so I wouldn't say to buy one. I know it's very difficult when you're first starting to kind of learn about it, to kind of put some visual on it. And I mean, that's with everything with bowling, because it's invisible, guys. I love saying that. I love saying that about bowling. It's the most unique sport because the playing field, which is the oil, we literally can't see. There is no other sport out there. Like, imagine watching a tennis match, but the whole court is invisible to include the net. And oh yeah, the net's moving and the court changes every time someone hits a ball. That's what ours is every time we throw a shot and slosh that oil around. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, this is the most unique sport with that. And because of that, I always say that this is, yeah, 15K, I actually was pretty close. You said 2:45 for men, women's high reset just last year, caught on camera, 210, the Candle Pin Bowling Network has many league matches. That's cool. I'll have to tune in and try to watch some more of that. Maybe I can start making some content. I just know I'm not as knowledgeable with that stuff, so I haven't really had the gumption to hop in yet, because I don't want to say anything incorrect, at least intentionally. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I was about to say I knew they had no oil. It's just completely dry. So, I mean, that kind of mechanic is totally out for you guys. But it's still a really neat sport. Yeah, if you guys ever want to look up candle pin, be sure to take a look. But, you know, that's why I always say this will always be the most difficult and will continue to be the most difficult, is navigating this oil. And with so many other bowlers bowling in so many different ways, because I always say there is no one way to bowl. Every bowler has their own unique DNA, no bowler will throw the bowling ball the exact same. They might have a very similar mechanic for how the ball is released out of their hand, but their actual physical form, there is no exactly identical bowlers. They all have some sort of little, I don't know what kind of word I'm looking for, but they all have a different sort of gait. They all have a different mannerisms in how they actually navigate up. And that's the beautiful thing about bowling, guys, is you don't have to learn the one way, because there is no one way. I mean, even in other sports, it's the same way. But this is one of the most open-ended books that you get to choose how you write it. But one thing that every bowler, no matter how they walk, how they talk, how they deliver, how they do whatever, is learning to navigate the lane surface. And any bowler that has more control over what adjustments they can make will almost always be the one that's able to be crowned the victor, because they give themselves the best odds of knowing how to strike. But if you don't know how to make a minute adjustments and you're only relying on a left and right move every time you're throwing a shot, it's just not ever optimal. And again, I don't want all of you to think that left and right moves should not be relied upon and should not be executed. They 100% should be. You guys should see how much left and right moves I make throughout the night. But I'm not only making those, because in a world where there's 101 different interpretations for one thing, you can ask 100 people and you'll get 101 different answers with bowling. It's the most amazing thing with that too, is anybody who's able to break it down into the most dimensions, again, has an advantage. And if you are limiting yourself to only, a 2D field of left and right, the bowlers who are making most of the 3D field around them, ones that get the most forgiveness. Top speeds at 45 miles an hour. That's crazy. That's crazy. I know the back swings are crazy too. They go above their head and swing it all the way down. That's pretty neat. I guess it makes sense. I mean, you blink and the ball's already making contact. I mean, it flies. Let me see what else, guys. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I feel like this was another good stream. Kind of get us back into things again. I know a couple of more housekeeping things since I don't want to miss them later. I know with the holidays being all wrapped up and everything, my uploading will be back to normal. So yay, no more lulls over here in Coach Logan land. So we will be back to normal uploading schedule, back to all the live streams and such, obviously, as we are here. Also, I made you guys aware in the last post, but I want to say it again that I extended the. I'm going to extend it again. I'll probably just do it tonight and just extend it. I keep on extending the free coaching stuff, because the beautiful thing about this is the channel. I like that the channel is growing, but I'm going to very much so miss these chances I have with all of you to connect on a more one-on-one level, because with anything that gets bigger, it gets harder and harder to manage my time, anyone's time, to devote to each individual person. But while the channel is still in its youth and is still up and coming, I'm strongly encouraging all of you to take advantage of the free coaching that I am offering. You can send videos, you can send emails and everything. And yes, it's an old email. I made it when I was like 12. If you look at the email, yes, you can laugh. Yes, you can make fun of it when you respond to me. I won't be upset. But go to my Google website and go on there and reach out with videos. I'll check them out. Ask me a question. It can even be something one-off. I even have a business phone that takes text that you can see. Once you email me, I'll give it to you. So just email me, ask your question, send some content, and I promise I'm not going to make any of you feel as if your questions are dumb, make sure your questions are silly, because at the end of the day, we're all here to help each other. And even when we're commenting, we're all kind of spitting ideas around and asking questions, which, Debbie, I see you. I'll get to you here in a second. I just want to make sure I cover all this. Keep reaching out, keep asking questions. I'm going to extend it. I'll probably just extend it until we get up to like 1,000 subscribers or something while we still can. So please reach out, strongly encouraging it. I do my best to get back as quickly as I can. I know my emails can get a little bit flooded sometimes, so I'll do my absolute best. So just bear with me, but I promise I will respond to you, and I will never give you like a half attempt of a response. I'll give you my full 2 cents on something and provide any follow-up clarification. There's no charges for responding more than once. There's no charges for texting me on the phone. Once you email me, there's no charges for any of that. Absolutely none. And if you want to call or something, we can schedule that. Like, I'm as versatile as you guys need me to be. I am here to be a tool. So, all right, Debbie, what you got? She said, any ideas about sanding and polishing to make adjustments? Do you have an episode for that? So that's actually something that I didn't really begin to discuss a whole lot. I didn't really discuss, at least maybe I did. Let me actually take a look. If I did, Debbie, it would certainly be toward the beginning of the Arsenal Advanced Adjustments playlist. Let me see. Let's take a look. I try to keep everything as like navigatable as possible with like the playlists and stuff. So if you guys are ever trying to locate a video, your best bet is to go to playlist because I have them all broken up and it says like what each one is and they're all episode numbered. So I tried my absolute best. So I talk about bowling ball cover stocks and what they mean. If I had it, let me see. I can use this little thing and see if it tells me. Let's see if it'll tell me here. I see YouTube is rolling out this new tool where it shows it. Yep, I do have one. So if you go to, it is the second episode, Debbie. It'll be at around the 7-minute mark. It talks about how you can use these grip pads to kind of dole your ball down. And essentially, the more sandy or the more gritty you can make that bowling ball, the sooner and the easier that bowling ball is going to have being able to respond to the friction it's seeing. So if you have a more gritty surface that you're rubbing onto it, that means it'll hook sooner. And if you have a less gritty surface, it'll still, if it's a polished ball, it's still going to read sooner and earlier, but it's not going to read as early as one that's even more gritty. It's kind of like sandpaper in a way, but not in a way where it's actually damaging the bowling ball. Don't use actual sandpaper. It's funny I have to say that because I've seen it. Yeah, that bowling ball didn't have a very long lifespan. I'd say it made it through like 2 of the games in the league I was in back then, and by the 3rd game, it kind of looked like a plastic ball. It kind of just didn't really do anything. So make sure that you're buying proper bowling equipment. I feel like that's kind of a one-off thing, I have to say, but just make sure that you're properly doing your research on the different equipment. But yeah, Debbie, episode 2 at around the 7-minute mark. At least that's what this thing's saying. If it's not right there, it'll be in that episode number, episode 2. Bowling ball cover stocks and what they mean. And I'll get you a video. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. Yeah, just reach out. And if you guys are having trouble navigating to the website, if you just go straight onto the... I'm going to flip this around. What the heck am I doing? Why make this so complicated, guys? I'm so sorry. So if you're on the channel, here you are. You see how it has like my little thing and whatever. You see where it says Sites Google? This exact site will take you right to my little Google website. So this shows you everything. You can see the emails down here on the bottom. Shows you all the stuff I can do, the different lessons we can do, all the stuff. There's the little free review. I'm going to extend that, don't worry. And then a little bit about me in case you guys want to know more about my stupid stuff I do. Well, there's EJ. That's Brad Angelo. I met a couple of the more fun guys. But yeah, so go on there if you want to like kind of have a little bit more things, or even if you're, because I've had a couple of you that are like, oh, look, I don't want my personal information. Promise, between you and I, this is kind of like going to a mom and pop shop basically and kind of doing stuff. I promise I don't have like a subscription list where if you email me, you're gonna get random things saying Logan Revier uploaded a episode. It's just, no, we don't do all that stuff here. I'm not here to bug you guys. I'm here to be a resource and a tool for all of you. So don't feel afraid. Don't think I'm going to bug you or anything. It's strictly an open book. If you guys have a question, I will respond, and I will never ever prompt you with something or try to sell you something or whatever. This is just from Logan to whomever. Trying to think what else. I think that's really all I've got, guys. I feel like we covered a lot. I know for this week, after this, I will go right on and see if I can edit those images and put it in the community where you can just click on it and view it if you would like to see it. I think I have a way I think I can do that. We'll figure it out. You might have to like zoom in or something if you're looking at it on your phone. But I should be able to figure out a way so you guys can just look at it within mobily and within the blink of an eye. So expect the Quick Tip Tuesday as per usual. I'll also roll out the new, this week I'm going to do the next episode Arsenal Advantage because I want to make sure we keep that ball rolling. But then starting next week, I think we are going to have our brand new series. So I did, a little while back, I did some voting. And I'm not going to run the poll again because we've already ran it a handful of times. And I kind of threw out a handful of different suggestions or sort of polls that you can kind of vote on with some different ideas I had for new series. Now, I want to make it very clear that I'm going to probably roll out all of these, if not most of all of them. because I think that all of those have their fair share and their place of providing you guys with the knowledge that you need. But which one I do first and such is kind of what this is meant to be. So we've had a very split vote with all of the new ones I proposed. Within the first one, we had a kind of clear victor. So I will keep you guys posted. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it. I know all you guys know I feel like I spoil my whole life on here, so I will not spoil it on here. So stay tuned for that. But this week will be just a pretty normal week, so expect the usual. Great night. It was awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I mean, again, seriously, guys, seriously, I'll sound like a broken record if it means I have to, but please reach out. Seriously, I am a tool for every single one of you, and the least I can do is remain available. And again, I will do my best to get back to you. If you start to email me and it takes a while, fire me another one, whatever it takes. I'd say usually I have like a 5-day turnover ratio. I know I'm a little behind with the holidays, so I'll do some catching up later on this evening. But yeah, that's all I got. So with all this snow and stuff, I'm sure some of you are getting, I know we certainly have, we had like 2 feet. Please drive safe. I know I always relate bowling to cars on an icy road, but don't try to experiment with your car, experiment with your bowling ball. Don't think of the icy road, but don't do that stuff out on these icy roads, okay? And obviously, I hope all of you had a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope you guys got some new bowling stuff. I know I got myself some new shirts and stuff that I ordered, so that'll all be good. And a new ball too, so that'll be fun. And I hope all of you have a great 2026. And I don't know what New Year's resolutions you guys have or if you guys do those, but the only New Year's resolution that I will ask all of you to have this year is to be true to yourself and always strive to be better than you were even just a second ago. And by being here, all of you are already on the right path to be doing that. So thank you all again, and I will see all of you at least by Tuesday. And stay tuned because I'll put those images up here shortly. So, all right, guys, have a great night and stay warm.